I'd like to ask you, because I find the evidence from radiocarbon, carbon-14, to be very compelling.
Yes, I do too.
In the years that I've been doing this, I remain unpersuaded or unconvinced by the responses that I've seen from skeptics, Mike, to the C14 found in diamonds and the coal that you talked about.
Yeah.
Especially with diamonds. I mean, the hardest substance on Earth should be immune in many ways to contamination.
Yes.
The C14 should be intrinsic. I'm curious, Mike, what would we as creationists do to the C14 then that we do find in diamonds? Is that original created C14, do you think? Because if it's there and it shouldn't be there, if the Earth is millions to billions of years old, how did it get there?
That's a good question. I probably lean that it was created there, but to be honest, I haven't thought about it much. I just focused in on the contradiction between secular ideas and creation scientist idea. Coal is be a little different. I belong to a global community where we gather maybe every 2 or 3 months to try to refine the carbon-14 method. And we have more questions than answers when you get beyond 3,000 years. And there's questions about how much carbon-14 collected pre-flood. And did the carbon-14 start at zero at the end of the flood? There's some questions on all this. And what would cause the rapid increase in carbon-14 for the first 1,500 years after the flood? We actually have 2 ideas on that. Russell Humphreys has one on cosmic rays from the sun increasing carbon-14 production at the upper atmosphere. That's how they're formed, by cosmic rays. I have an idea that they're cosmic rays in general from the outside the solar system. So regardless, we think cosmic rays greatly increased during and after the flood. And so those are some ideas thrown out. And I think there's 1 or 2 ideas I can't think of right now, but we're working on it. Research is exceedingly slow.
Yeah, well, and there's endless research projects, which means if you're a biblical creationist, you'll never be bored.
Never. Never bored.
There really is endless things to study and research. And so I like that you pointed that out with the C14 and how C14 is created in the upper atmosphere through cosmic ray bombardment. Okay, so going back in the past, can we look to carbon dating as something being reliable, maybe going back a couple thousand years, a few thousand years, but the closer we get to the flood, and then obviously the closer we get to the pre-flood world, where the magnetic field would have been different, the nature of the atmosphere would have been different. Is this where carbon dating becomes more unreliable then, Mike?
Yes. After the flood, there probably wasn't too much carbon-14 in the atmosphere. Then there was a great increase in carbon-14. So like when you date a mammoth and you don't find much carbon-14 in it, well, it's because it lived soon after the flood. And other organisms that maybe lived 1,000 years have gathered a lot of carbon-14, and so they would date much younger. So that's generally what we think, and but we got to figure out why the carbon-14 increased so fast after the flood. It probably even started during the flood too. So that's what we're working on, and so
it's an important question, and it's an objection that frequently comes up. And so I'm glad we're talking about it here. Is a challenge from our chat. Sydney Raptor, appreciate the question. And so he brings up this issue. This is a common one. as when we'll point out the contradiction in the old Earth model, as you've done. We find C14 in coal and dinosaur fossils and diamonds. C14 has such a short half-life. Is it true or accurate to say, Mike, that if every atom in the universe was radiocarbon, it would have all decayed easily in 500,000 to 1,000,000 years?
Oh, well, yeah, it'd probably be 100,000 years.
Wow. Okay, so we should not find the levels of C14 that we do find. But here's their response. In my opinion, they're not really refuting the data that strongly contradicts their millions to billions of years model. But they'll say, okay, well, the dates that they got, the rate team got in coal, in diamonds, so on and so forth, is in the tens of thousands of years. Yes. Firstly, they'll say that's more than 6,000 years. So it contradicts our model according to them. We've largely addressed the unreliability of C14 dating the closer, the more we move back in time. But they'll also say that, well, we get a consistent age. Here it looks like Sydney Raptor is saying about 70,000 years. And they'll say that consistency, I think, this is the way I'm interpreting it, means that this could be background or simply contamination that's being detected. What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, I don't think the diamonds are contaminated. I don't think the coal is contaminated either. So I believe we can rule out that. And the secular scientists, the reason they date coal is for background for their machines. That to start at some level that's not zero. The reason we get these older dates in diamonds and coal, 58,000 years for diamonds, is because there's hardly any carbon-14 in these systems. So by the method, it would, of course, date very old because of the lack. So is this due to lack of cosmic rays forming carbon-14 in the pre-flood world? Yeah, or very small amount. So, but it's kind of consistent in that during the flood, we would be bearing carbon. We wouldn't expect much carbon-14 in there. So anything you date that was buried in the flood, like coal, should be near zero. So you'd get, say, 70,000 years out of it. The practical limit of carbon-14 today is 50 to 55,000 years. Beyond that, the contamination is more of a problem. But the machines can detect clear past 70,000 years. But beyond that, they lose it. So I think I hopefully answered that question that I see before me from Sydney.
Don't we find a consistency in the amount of C14 that we find in coal that correlates with this coal being formed during the flood, Mike?
I forgot what the rate scientists found. I don't remember how consistent. All I remember, it was quite low. Mm-hmm. And gave, of course, old ages when you don't have a lot of carbon-14 in the coal. But I don't remember whether it grouped around a particular age. I kind of think that it did.
Yeah, if maybe I've got a slide on this, actually. Let me see here. We had Dr. John Baumgartner on recently for a seminar, excellent seminar on the flood. We also had a section on this issue. And if you can see this visual, I wonder if you could help me explain to the audience the significance of some of this. These are from Dr. John Baumgartner's slides. When it comes to we got diamonds here and then 10 coal samples and the C14 age in years.
You're pretty close.
Yeah. All very close.
About 50,000 years on the average.
Now, Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, and I'm wondering, what is the significance of this, for example? So, rate C14 measurements of 6 African diamonds. So, we find C14 in all of these diamonds where we shouldn't find it. But when it says results are between 40 times and 310 times the AMS detection limit, what is the significance of that, Mike?
Oh, that means yeah, you had that much more carbon-14 that you can detect. That's beyond no detection. So that means it's there's enough carbon-14 to be easily detected by our current machines in coal and diamonds. And the fact that coal is so close, you kind of expect that in the pre-flood biosphere, the material to have generally the same carbon-14 amount in them,
Right.
which is very low. The reason for very low, we really don't know, but we kind of expect that the Earth would be still pretty young. And maybe it was shielded from carbon-14. So we would expect the vegetation in general that formed coal would generally have the same day. So that makes sense within the flood model.
And here, when it comes to the secular radiocarbon literature, there's a number of different samples. And this isn't just a one-off occurrence or an anomaly. I mean, we have many examples. There's marble, shell, wood, calcite, so on and so forth. It says C14 value for just under 50,000 a year corresponds to 1,270 times the AMS detection limit.
Yeah, that's right.
So
yeah.
Is that a point against the argument that says that this all might be due to contamination, whether instrumental or environment, Mike?
I don't think so, because the measurements you get, in this case 40,000 about, yeah, that's well above the detection limit. That's all it's saying. If you go out to 80,000 years, it'd be about zero. You wouldn't get a detection limit because you can't detect any. But 40,000 years is much greater than the zero limit. And if you got to 30,000 years, it'd probably be 3,000 times as much carbon-14 as the detection limit. So, yeah, I don't know if that's saying anything about contamination or what. So it's anyway. That's my analysis of that.
And you remain unconvinced by the arguments from contamination because they're still pretty prominent from anti-creationists. Oh, this is either environmental contamination in the. I guess when it comes to the instruments themselves, I mean, from my understanding, the samples are treated with harsh acids, multiple washes in harsh acids, where the C14 should be intrinsic, shouldn't it, Mike?
I don't quite know what you mean by intrinsic, but it should for coal and diamonds, it would have got there during the formation, and contamination would have been by young carbon from how else a crack coming down from the surface and adding young carbon. That's the only way I could think is contaminated. But when they take samples, they know about contamination, and people who take samples try very hard to guard against contamination.
Right.
And the fact that we have us and the secular scientists have dated coal over 100 times, I don't know the exact number, probably maybe it's in the hundreds. The fact that would think that it can't all be due to contamination. In fact, I believe that hardly any of it is due to contamination.
Right.
And when we date diamonds, we don't believe they can be contaminated at all. So this is a very solid argument, and it defies the millions of years. And because of that, and because conventional scientists are so married to deep time, they got to try to refute it to keep their worldview intact.
Right.
So,
I think Dr. Baumgartner, he made a good point when he was presenting on this and we were discussing. He said, at this point, the evidence is so strong, especially in samples like coal,
yeah,
for the presence of C14 where it shouldn't be, and contamination just simply doesn't work as a good rescue device, that to
yeah,
reject this and the implications is more so on a philosophical basis,
yep,
because they need to hold on to their old earth paradigm. The clear conclusions that we've made based on this evidence would just completely overturn their worldview. And
mhm.
so it doesn't seem like it's a scientific reason really that they're rejecting it.
Yes, it's a non-scientific reason, and for scientists or even for the lay public, I think this is problematic. This is no way to find truth. They should be open to biblical truth.
Amen. Well said.